Hey everybody, how's it going? In my past videos, I covered about Flask, I covered about Django REST framework, and now this time, let's now cover FastAPI. So if you don't know what FastAPI is, it's a framework that allows you to build backend APIs with really high performance. One of the best things I found out about FastAPI is that it allows for Python type hints. So if you're someone who has a TypeScript background, this is a framework you will certainly love. So now I know that FastAPI has a documentation page that's very clear and easy to follow, but this video will be for people who prefer a more visual approach. Anyways, now that you know what FastAPI is, let's get started. So here I am in VS Code with a dev container open. So first we would have to install our dependencies. So within my terminal here, I would first have to activate or create a Python environment. So I'll open the command palette, Python create environment. I'll use conda. Sure, let's use Python 3.11 and now we wait. Okay, so now that my environment has been built, I would first have to run conda init. Close and reopen your current shell. So I exit. Let's create another terminal instance and conda activate .conda/. Great, let me clear this. And first let's install our dependency. So I go pip install FastAPI, then we close this, standard, and then close my apostrophe. And now we wait. Okay, so now that my dependencies have been built, first I would have to create a blank file. So new file, let's call it main.py. This will be my entry point to my backend API. And here let's write some code. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from FastAPI. I import FastAPI. We have GitHub Copilot today. And then app is equals FastAPI. So initialize my application. And then we define our routes. So first of all, let's define our index route. So app.get / and then closing bracket. So yeah, thanks to GitHub Copilot, we have some autocomplete. So async def read, let's not do read def root, and then yeah, basically thanks to autocomplete we have some code. So here I return my hello world message. So let's test it out. So first of all, for cleanliness, I'll just clear my terminal window, and then to run my API I go FastAPI. Let's first check if FastAPI CLI tool is working. Okay, so it is working. Let me clear this. So FastAPI dev main.py. So run my main.py. Okay, so now it's running. So as you can see, according to the logs, my API is now running at port 8000 and my documentation is running on the /docs endpoint. So here it uses OpenAPI or Swagger for documentation. So for example, let's say within my browser, I go localhost and then 8000. So here you can see my hello world message comes up. And then if I go to /docs, here, as you can see, my documentation for my API is automatically generated. This is the best thing I like about FastAPI. It automatically generates documentation for you on the fly. Anyways, let's go back to VS Code. Let's try doing path parameters. So app.get, to create a path parameter, let's say hello. It's not yellow, it's hello. And then for our path parameter, it's a curly brace like so, and then the name of my path parameter, let's just do name. And then async def, let's call our function, say hello, and then name. And then here we can go return, so we return a message to the user, hello name. That's it. Okay, so now we save, and now if I go back to the browser, if I refresh, as you can see, my endpoint is automatically generated for me within the documentation. But I very much prefer to use an API client. And then here I can go say hello, and then my name, let's say Hussein. Great, as you can see, our code works. We can even account for Typesafety. So let's create another endpoint. Let's say age, and yeah, age as my path parameter. And then thanks to GitHub Copilot, we have autocomplete. Basically, very similar to the previous function. And if I run it, let's go back to my API client. Say age. So obviously age should be a number, but if I run this command, you can see it still works. So we can add Typesafety to this. So to add Typesafety, Here I can go int. That's it. So now when I run it, I expect an error. As you can see, our code works. And this time if I go to the browser and if I refresh, here we can see our types also show up automatically. So another important thing I would like to mention is about order of your path. So for example, let's say I have an endpoint. Let's say, for example, say hello/myself, where I want to return an output that says hello to, or it's better to say I am talking to myself. And I have another endpoint similar to this one where I just say hello and then the name of the user. So here in these cases, you will have overlapping parameters. So let me just copy this function. Let me paste it here. And instead of name, let's go myself. Let me remove this parameter. It's a bit distracting, to be honest. And here I just go, I am talking to myself. Let me go back to my API client and let's test it out. So say hello myself. So here you can see our code works. However, let's say I switch up the order a bit. Let's say this comes first, and this time if I run my API, you can see we now have a problem. This is because this time the name parameter or the name endpoint matched first. Because of this endpoint would run instead. Anyways, let me just switch the order back, and yeah, let's move on. Another thing I would like to show you guys is about enums. This will allow you to pick values from a certain set. So for example, let's say I create an enum. Let's call it class K-pop group. So the type of this enumeration would be string, comma, and then to define an enum, I just go enum. Let me now fix my imports. So here I go from enum, import enum. Now let's scroll down. So here let's do twice, and then twice in capital, Blackpink in capital, and then let's do red velvet, where red velvet is the capital. And then let's use this enum within an endpoint. So I go app.get /kpop/group, and then let's create a function. So thanks to GitHub Copilot, we have some code again. And then I go if group equals Kpop group dot, and then any value from my enum twice. And then I go return message. Let's go you selected twice, great choice. Let's do the same with the other values. So elif group Kpop group dot Blackpink, and yeah, this is a suitable message. And let's add I love their songs, and let's do it for the last one as well. So if my group name is red velvet, we can also return this message. Let's change it to they have a unique style. That's it. So now let's go back to my API client, and here let me remove this. So this time it's Kpop / and then the name of my group. Let's do twice. Great, as you can see, our code works. Let's try entering a value that's not within this enum. For example, let's go new jeans. So if I send, as you can see, we have an error. And now if we go back to our Swagger API, as you can see, we also have a defined endpoint. And yeah, for our parameters, we can only choose certain values. This means that our code successfully works, and type safety is also being enforced. Okay, so now let's talk about query parameters within FastAPI. They're really easy. So for demonstrating query parameters, I'm going to create a little mock database, which is just an array of names. So an array and then square brackets. So I already have a few names. Let's just copy from my demo code and then I'll paste it like so. So basically names of people and then their ages. And then here I can create my endpoint. So app.get /names. And then let's create a function async def get names, or let's just do get people. And for now, I'll just do pass. So here to build a parameter or a query parameter, within my parenthesis, I go, for example, let's say index. So the index of any name I want or any person I want. And we can do type safety as well. So let's do int for now. And then we can also make a check. So if my index is less than 0 or my index is more than equals to the length of the names, so I return an error. Otherwise, I return a specific person with that index. So this time, if I go back to my Swagger API or my Swagger documentation, we now have a query parameter along with this type. And going back to my API client, here let's go names/0. So it looks like I made an error here. It's not a path parameter, it's a query parameter. So question mark and then index. So let's say 0. Great, as you can see, our code works. We can even add more parameters if we want. So let's go name of type string and let's do a check. So if names index and then the name is equals to my name, then I can return that name. So going back to my API client, we can add the second parameter, so index and then the name. So in this case it was minG, so minG and then send. So it still works. And then going back to my documentation here, you can see both of my parameters are required. What if I want to make any of these parameters or both of these parameters as optional? That's very easy. To do so, within my parameters, I can go int and then or none, and the default value can be none. So now this means that's optional. I can do the same for my name here, none equals none. So let's now make this code a little bit better. So here I can go if index is none and the name is also none, I can just return the names like so. So message names. And then I can add another check. So if index is not none, so if the index exists and the name is none, and let's just put it here. And then at the end, return names index. Let me remove this. And then we can add another check. So if index is none this time, and my name is not none. So yeah, let's loop through my array. So for person in names, so if person name and then equals to the name in the parameter, I can return that person. Or better yet, let's just do a JSON. So message is person. And then for error handling, let's do return an error that the name was not found. That's it. We can even add a check to see if the index and name are both there. So if index is not none and name is not none, I can go return. Yeah, this is well enough. And now let's go back to my documentation. Let me refresh. And as you can see, this time both of my parameters are optional. So if I try it out, let's execute it. And now we have all of our people or the list of people showing up. So let's test it further. So an index of 0, I expect my first person to show up. Great. Let me remove this. Let's add the name here in and then execute. We also have this showing up, and then let's add both of them. So I expect an error to come up. So execute, and yeah, as you can see, our code works. If we want, we can even clean up this list of parameters a little bit so that code readability is a bit easier. To do so, here I'm going to create a class, filter params, and it's going to be a child class of base model. So I import base model. Let's just check if the import was correct. Yes, it was correct. And now let's scroll down, colon. So index, type int. Let me just copy this. This is basically better to copy. Index of type none or int. Let me copy and paste here. Let's do the same for the name as well. And then here we can remove here like so. Here let's call filter query of type annotated, and it accepts a square bracket. So my first parameter here is going to be filter params, not my first parameter, but my first index, comma, query. That's it. Now let's fix the imports. So I scroll up. From typing extensions, I import annotated, and from FastAPI, I import query. It's better to put query here instead. Let me remove this, and yeah, let's now scroll down. So let's fix this a little bit. So I go index is equals filter query dot index. Same for my name. And yeah, let's test it out if it works. So within my API client, send. Okay, so it's still working. Let's test it further. And just for my name, send. Okay, so far it works just fine. So since this is a backend API, we can even add support for request bodies. So for example, let's say I create a function to append items to my names array. So I go app.post/names, it's okay for me, and then async def add person, and then my person. So we need a type for that person. So I go class, it's better to define it app class person of type base model. Once again, the name will be string and my age will be int. So basically the same schema as my names array. Now let me scroll down. The person of type person, and then names the append person.dect. Whoops, it's deprecated, sorry. Model dump. That's it. Let's now test it out. So this time I'm going to do a post. Let's remove these query parameters. So within my body, I already have some content. Let's just send. And yeah, as you can see, the post request worked successfully. So let's do a get request to see if my items have been added. And yeah, as you can see, our code worked just fine. So for my last part of my video, I would also like to show you guys how we can mix the JSON body, the query parameters, and the path parameters as well. So to do so, I go app.get/names, and then my path parameter, let's just do name here. And if I scroll up, we can just copy all of this code. So it's better to just copy all of this, and let's scroll down. And here I can paste it, and here we can change the name of the function. Let's do get people new, and here I go comma and then the name of type string, or it's even better, let's call it name path param of type string. Let me copy this and paste it here. So what will happen here is that FastAPI will automatically detect our path parameter as well as our query parameter. So let's use it. Here I can go names and then comma and then my path parameter. Let's do the same for here as well. And we can do the same for here as well. So let me fix it. So message, and yeah, let's now test it out. So names and then my name. Here, as you can see, my path parameter is now showing up just fine. Now going back to my code editor, we can even add the JSON body. So I go comma and then let's do person of type person. And for now, we can just return the person like so. And let's do the same here as well. And then the same here as well. So thanks to Typesafety and other clever tricks from FastAPI, the library or the framework can automatically tell what is the JSON body and what is the query parameter and what is the path parameter. This is one of the best things I like about FastAPI. Anyways, let's now test it out. So here within my body, let's add someone else, Sana of age 29, and then I send. Great. So as you can see, my JSON body is also being parsed correctly. Let's also try testing our type safety. So this time, instead of age being an integer, we can do a string, and let me send. Okay, so it still works. This is because Python is parsing this as an integer. Instead, let's add letters. So instead of 29 as a number, I go 29. As you can see, our code works. Let me change it back. And here, instead of name being a string, let's add an integer here, or let's add a float. As you can see, type safety is working just as fine as before. And going back to my documentation here, we can see what fields are required and what fields are optional. Now this time, I would like to make you guys try something for yourself. Can you try making the request body as optional? So now I'll give you a moment to figure it out. If you figured it out, the correct method I would say is within my code base here. Just like before, to make something optional, I go or none equals none. That's it. So if I go back to my documentation, and here as you can see, my request body is not required anymore. That's it for today. In this video, you guys learned about the basics of FastAPI and also build a very simple project using the FastAPI framework. You also learned about how types work with FastAPI. If you guys have any questions or any feedback, let me know within the comment section below. Till then, bye bye.